Hey everybody, welcome back to another movie review. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Excuse me if you just noticed like these little marks on my face. I was wearing my glasses and I had just gotten out of the theater, so just excuse me if you just noticed these little marks. Just was wearing my glasses. It's the blue lights just cannot handle for long periods of time. But drove out to the Angelica Theater once again. It's been a while since I've been to this theater. Forget the last time we were here. I think it might have been for Past Lives, which was like almost a year ago. But whatever the case may be, we're back to the Angelica Theater once again. Really nice theater. If you guys have never been to an Angelica Theater, there's a few around the country. There was one in New York City that I went to, which was really nice. And this one's also really nice too. So if you have an Angelica Theater around you, I recommend that you go there, especially if you're into smaller independent films. Angelica Theater usually takes in more smaller films than other theaters would. So support these theaters. They're actually really good for independent filmmakers and for smaller films to be given wider releases. And in the case of this, we're going to be discussing Wim Wenders' latest film, that film being Perfect Days, which was co-written and directed by Wim Wenders, who you guys may be familiar with in the past with a couple of films, specifically Paris, Texas, which we discussed on this channel before. Really love Paris, Texas quite a bit. I was just revisiting Paris, Texas a little bit to kind of get reacquainted with Wim Wenders, just my overall connections with Wim Wenders. He's also done films such as Wings of Desire, which I've been curious to see, and a film called An American Friend, I believe, which I've also been curious to see. But latest from Wim Wenders, he also had a film out this year, which we discussed briefly in a topic video. It was called Enslum, I think that's how you say it. It was a 3D documentary, which we discussed on a topic video of sorts. But this tells a story of a I don't recall if they ever gave the character a name. I don't think they ever did. But tells a story of a janitor who, we go through his each and every day, his routines, from him going to work, from him getting his coffee, from him going to certain bars or certain places, to then reading books before he goes to bed and repeating the cycle, or having some different things happen in between depending on if he's on work or off work. We see him sometimes taking place at a park and just kind of sort of relaxing. And his motto, it seems, is to have it be very zen, very chill, very relaxed. Not much activity per se in his life, least of all social life, and it seems to be something that he takes priority of. It's not that he just doesn't have a social life or has trouble having a social life. He seems very adamant on just not really engaging, as is evident to him, like with his employees or just with other people. He's just very mute. And eventually, because for a long time we don't actually hear his voice. As with the isolated nature that comes with his character, we don't really hear a lot of what he's, we may not hear him in the literal sense, but in the eternal sense, we are getting an understanding as to what his character is, how he strives for simplicity, and also while at the same time having something buried underneath, something that he might be dealing with in the background, as his motto is also to be in the now, as of one point in the film, where he's like, live in today and not tomorrow, and whatever happens is going to happen, So kind of going with the flow sort of mentality. But eventually, one of his relatives runs away from home, having issues with this person's sister, and decides to hang out with this person for a little bit. And what follows from that is an unraveling of this routine, of this sort of lifestyle, and kind of rocks him for a minute as his past events, or at least past things, start to boil in his body, and you get to see ultimately a person wrestle with maintaining a certain sphere of ignorance ultimately. as is the film ultimately is about simplicity, what is really, really solid and really great in the depiction of that simplicity is the challenges within that sort of thing and the ignorance that might be within it, as is there are things that he is wrestling with eternally, that he is just choosing not to really to acknowledge. At some one point, he's at a bar and you see everyone, like, there's a word that kind of triggers him. You see that people, how he responds to the word wife, and you see how his face kind of softens, and he's just, there's something about that that's triggering him. Acknowledging of like a family, father. At one point, they discussed about his father, and it's just literally, like, what's really great about this is that it's just one sentence. It's not that they have to take an entire scene to explain how he ended up in this place. It's just one sentence. It's like, oh, well, this and that about a wife. Aren't you married? And you see how he responds to that. And hey, your father is not like that anymore. And you see how he responds to that. So it's very nonverbal. And within that language, within that overall visual storytelling that the film is presenting, what you get from it is something very investing and acted with quite, just really, really well acted by the lead. You get a great sense of who this character is based just solely from that performance, but also the craftsmanship around him, around that performance, is also very, very well made, as it is very informative to the character, but also informative thematically speaking. You do feel where the character is at those points in the story. When he is calm, you are calm. When he is starting to get anxious, you feel anxious yourself. I'm tempted to say it's brilliant because I love the overall, like there it had it had the trouble of becoming redundant, because it takes a pleasure in showing you his everyday lifestyle, and you could see a lot of patterns formed in that style, and you do run into trouble with potentially losing interest within this, like, a redundant like quality. But within that, it is actually quite informative. It's not where it actually removes your interest. It actually involves you more, because it makes you wonder, okay, well, why does he feel that this is the life that he desires, and what has pushed him to this place? And then comes those little clues as to what might have happened in his past. And narratively and just literally, it is very nonverbal. It is a bit ambiguous as to what has happened to him, and it's properly so. It's not a film where you need those answers. You don't need to know what happened in his past. You just need some suggestion, some idea, and that's all it supplies. Something about his dad, something about his wife. Like, probably his wife passed away, if I was to guess. Father was probably an asshole. These little things, that the sister and him not getting along, it gives you an impression of where things may have gone, and why he is where he's at, and why he chooses to have such a seclusive and isolated like existence. So it gives you some understanding as to where he is, and at the same time, how troubling at times and challenging it can be to maintain that lifestyle when you are having to wrestle with certain kinds of trauma and certain kinds of past experiences, ghostly like figures, things that always will lurk, within your existence. It's really, really well told, and I think just really well acted. I forget the actor's name, but I think just, expression wise, I love the subtle nature of that performance, because you get an understanding just solely based on that, and also within the craftsmanship. But purely with that performance, what it does is show up a guy who is, the word is trying, ultimately, for the character. He is trying to maintain this whole idea, this whole routine, this whole lifestyle, this environment that he wishes to live in. You could see it on his face, where it's, he's putting on that smile, and he just is trying to get through the next day, and nothing more informative than that last scene where he's smiling and crying at the same time. You can see the dilemma at play and what is happening with that character on the inside. Because for a large portion of the film, it's very external when you watch this character. It's a lot to do with just his physicality, a lot of how his actual face just drops, or how he responds to certain words. And eventually it becomes an eternal thing. It becomes more about um, the literal how he is feeling in the now, and how that comes out physically. Um, so it's really, really good. And I really found myself just wrapped up in it. And like I said, it had the potential to get a bit redundant, but thankfully it didn't get to that place for me. And I just found myself really wrapped up in this very cozy, zen, and very informative, just very meditative and very informative atmosphere that I was just found myself really engaged in. Just really, really engaged. So, and highly relatable for me. I don't know, like a lot of the stuff the character has on him, like trait wise and also just literal job wise, is pretty like, oh shit, I can relate to this pretty well. So, um, but yeah, very, very good piece, and I highly recommend that you check it out when you guys get a chance to, and if it's around your area. So, but yeah, so those are my thoughts on Perfect Days. I thought it was pretty good. Very, very good. I'm very curious to actually see more of Wim Wenders' films. I've been curious to see Wings of Desire or American Front. But you guys will know your thoughts on Perfect Days if you guys have seen it. And of course, your thoughts on Wim Wenders as a director. Do you guys like his films? Do you guys not like his films? He seems to be a pretty, fairly, like pretty just, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, he seems very level as a filmmaker in terms of his sensibilities as a filmmaker, and I welcome that. So I'm curious to see more of how that translates to his other films. But you guys want to know your thoughts on Wim Wenders and Perfect Days and all that stuff in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for me, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.